Right now, 400 kilometres above us, above the Earth's surface, orbiting at 17,500 miles per hour, 5 miles per second. The new crew of the International Space Station are just settling in. A team of 4 that make up Expedition 74 set off Friday morning, 5:15 a.m. from Cape Canaveral. This is the moment of launch.
And liftoff. Go Falcon, go Dragon, and Godspeed Crew 12.
And liftoff. Freedom flies bound for the International Space Station. 1.7 million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9 and Crew 12.
Well, this is the team replacing the one that had to return recently due to an urgent medical emergency for one of the crew. They are Jessica Meir and Jack Hathaway from the US, Andrei Fedyev, a Russian cosmonaut, and Sophie Adenot, becoming the second female astronaut from France after Claudie Eniere 3 decades ago. This is what Sophie said once on board the spacecraft about the view and about the achievement of making it there.
The first time we looked at the Earth was, wow, mind-blowing. The Earth is so beautiful from up there. And literally, we see no lines, no borders. And it was, yeah, a very big moment for us, Jack and me, to see that for the first time. So we're happy to share it with you in the future events.
The ISS is considered the most expensive human-made engineering project in history. A total cost over its lifetime estimated around $150 to $160 billion. And since the year 2000, for 25 years, has been continuously occupied by humans living and working in a set of capsules in a football field-sized space, pushing the boundaries of science and space. And Sophie Adenot from Burgundy, a former helicopter pilot, said she dreamed of this moment since she was tiny, since even though there were slim odds of doing it, she talked about her family encouraging her from the off. She made it. She was selected amongst the crew back in 2022. Let's bring in Michel Tognini, someone who's been cheering from Terra Nova, a renowned French astronaut. He's journeyed into space twice on the predecessor of the ISS, the Russian space station Mir, which means peace in English, spending 2 weeks on board for 5 days as well on that NASA Space Shuttle Columbia mission back in 1999. And also, Michel is author of A Coffee in Space in the Shoes of an Astronaut. Welcome back to France 24, Michel. It's always great to hear from you. You are now president of the Val Allen Foundation too, to promote space science, research and education. Tell me, Michel, when you watched that takeoff at the time, did you watch it with trepidation like I do when they take off? Or has it become routine for you now? You know, what are you thinking in that moment of launch?
Good evening, and thank you for the invitation. Obviously, when you see a friend going to space, you are very excited, and it shows a very good emotion for you because you remind the same emotion you got, like for me, 35 years ago or 25 years ago for my 2 missions. So I had the same feeling as Sophie had, and when she had the liftoff from the ground in Cape Canaveral, I had the feeling that myself was going to space, because what is very important is that there is a continuity between the job we performed like 60 years ago and the job Sophie is making now. There is every time new astronaut selected, new astronaut going to space station, making experiments. Some experiments are mostly the same as we started like a long time ago, and for us it's a good benefit.
Let's take a look right now at the live images that are provided by the European Space Agency and of NASA. This is what they can see looking down into Earth. This is quite incredible that we can watch this moment. What are they likely to be doing now, Michel? What are they usually doing for the first 24 hours?
So they just joined the space station yesterday. You know, the trip was very long because they had like 30 hours of traveling before the docking. So it was kind of difficult for them for the tiredness and everything. And they will start to work on Tuesday. So today was a resting day, and tomorrow will be a day where they will take care of the space station. What are the new facility on the space station? What are the differences in between the space station as it is now and the simulator on the ground? So it is accommodation time tomorrow, and the real job will start on Tuesday morning. And they will do science. They will do like 8 hours of science every day. You know, the time for an astronaut is shared between science, repair of the space station, and exercise. So altogether, it's about 8 hours a day.
I think I'm right in saying it orbits the Earth every 90 minutes or so. Is that right? I'm looking at images. There's a live tracker from the ISS. You can see where it is right now. It says it's between North and South Dakota. So by the time we finish this interview, I'm sure it'll be well off towards the Pacific by then. When you look at...
Yes, it goes very fast.
When you tell me about Sophie Adenot, you said you watched as a friend on board. This is an extraordinary story, the second female French astronaut, as I mentioned. What have you made of her path to this moment?
Well, she was on selection of 2008 with Thomas Pesquet, and at the time she was very young, like she was like 25 years old, and therefore we recommended her to make some complementary study in order to perform the job of an astronaut, and she applied for the next selection that we did in 2022, and therefore she was selected in order to fly today. So she had the shortest time of training before going to space. For her, it was a very difficult job, and she performed everything with the highest mark. And so I am very glad for her to be in space now. And that I can tell you that she has been studying a lot, like 16 or 15 hours a day in order to get to this point.
When you look at and you know from having been through this process years ago, you look at the competition, the ability that it takes. I'm minded of the fact that Sophie said it was seeing Claudie 30 years ago. It was seeing the first French female astronaut at 13 years old. She says she knew then that was a possibility. And I'm thinking about the ability that it takes, but also about your foundation. When you're watching, when you're hoping to see a continuation of more Sophies, are you noticing any ripple effect at this time? Youngsters, teenagers who are engrossed or inspired by Sophie right now?
I can just tell you numbers. When I applied to be an astronaut in 1995, we were 1,000 candidates for 7 astronauts. The selection of Thomas Pesquet that I organized, there was 8,000 candidates for 6 astronauts, and the one of Sophie Adenot, there were 22,000 candidates for 5 astronauts. So it's more and more demanding, more and more people are interested, and more people are dreaming of becoming an astronaut. And the interesting point is that we recommend all these people to study very well in order to achieve that dream. And if they cannot be an astronaut, they will be a good engineer to perform and to build satellites for the future or rockets. And this is a very good point for the future as well, because all that we do is linked to space.
And if we think about the next 8 months, after kind of settling in now, this period where they check everything, kind of like an Airbnb, if you will, in space, just making sure everything's there as it should be, checking where the emergency exits are as well. What work are they likely to be doing over this 8 months? And is there a chance that Sophie gets to do a spacewalk?
Well, she will do several spacewalks to repair the space station, because it's like an old car. You have to repair it regularly. You have to check some items outside. You have to install some antenna outside. So she has to do some job outside of the space station, and she will perform 2 or 3 extravehicular activities. But most of the time she will be inside to do science, and not only science, but they will do also robotic operation. And she will also receive the new module coming from Earth to bring food and supply on the space station, and also taking the trash from the space station to these modules. So it's a lot of activities. And there is a new spacecraft with people coming every 3 or 4 months. So she will receive the new astronaut in 3 or 4 months from now, and she will be the old person on the space station compared to the new guys coming in, and she will explain what's going on the space station compared to what they see on the simulator. And that is a continuing story between the new and the old astronaut.
You raise an issue that actually I want to touch upon, which is kind of what it's like when you first get there, and you can compare and contrast the differences over time. Let's have a listen first. When Sophie first arrived alongside the crew, this is what she said about the feeling around her and the view down below.
The first time we looked at the Earth was, mind-blowing. The Earth is so beautiful from up there. And literally, we see no lines, no borders. And it was, a very big moment for us, Jack and me, to see that for the first time. So we're happy to share it with you in the future events.
What's really interesting, the British astronaut, Major Tim Peake, described being inside the International Space Station. He said this: it was comfortable, the silence made him feel at home. It didn't feel overcrowded, he said, and each has their own little compartment, around the size, he said, of a British phone box. So that's your own little area where you can make it yours to a degree. And I want to compare that with your time on the Mir Space Station. I mentioned this. Michael Foale, another British astronaut, said back in 1997, he was in awe on arrival, but it had a smell. He said it was like a garage of oil. It was very organised, but very cluttered. Do you remember that? Did it have a smell? What was it like?
Well, there was no smell when I came to the space station. I was on the Mir space station in 1992. It was very clean, and I can tell you that we traveled 2 days before going to the space station, and the Soyuz was starting to smell a little bit bad. Not bad, but the smell of metal and rubber of the spacesuit. So that was not very nice as a smell. But when you get into the space station, the smell was really good. I mean, it was no smell at all. It was very clean, and the Russian cleaned everything before we arrived. So everything was very nice for us. Was very pleasant for us to get in. And the first day you don't feel very well because you have motion sickness. You have all this move from the blood from your legs to your head. So your head is getting slightly bigger, and your legs are getting slightly smaller. You have a time of adaptation. But then when you get adaptation after, I would say, 1 week or 10 days, you feel really good in space. And I remember on the last day of my mission asking the Russian to stay 1 or 2 more days, and they said it's not possible because the contract doesn't allow this ability. So I was a little bit upset to stay just a few weeks on the space station, and I can imagine that Sophie will feel the same. She will get this time of adaptation, and she will feel a little bit difficult on the first time. She will get used after 1 week, and after she will feel really good, and then you feel extremely good, and you feel like it was your life. I mean, you feel like this the domain where you are in the best situation. And then you have some psychological issue at the time because you have to stay like 9 months on a small volume with the same people. So this is hard, and we prepare the astronaut for that. We do like HBP for human behavior and performance. We do HBP training in order for the people and the astronaut to be stronger for staying on the space station in a psychological point of view for long duration flight.
Even with that training, Michel, do you remember, was there one particular thing that, used to get on your nerves that you think back to and think, that anybody spending that amount of time with effective strangers, even with family perhaps, for that long, was there something in particular that annoyed you?
For me, for a short mission, nothing was annoying me, except that when you're on a space station, you just have to imagine it's like a camping, in a camping situation. So you don't have your own room, you don't have your own place to put your stuff. So I had a bag, like like the marine bag, a small bag to put all my stuff inside. And I remember that every time I was opening my bag, the stuff inside was starting to blow outside because there was no gravity. So I was starting to catch each part after another. So that was annoying because I didn't organize myself very well. But if you are well organized, if you put everything with rubber and string and you put everything in order, life is good. But I didn't prepare myself enough to catch with zero gravity environment.
When we look now at Michel, the ISS, the International Space Station, will come back down to Earth, the orbit in 5 to 7 years, so on 2030 we think. It is reaching its life expectancy. Is there something poignant for the teams working there now? Because we know there's no replacement as yet. And I ask how you assess the achievement, perhaps, the legacy of the ISS as it's coming to its final years.
Up to now, I mean, this is a real success for us because it was a very difficult cooperation at the beginning between the Russian and American, and they've been working together more than 25 years. There was not a single problem in terms of techniques between Russian and American. And I can tell you, when I came to NASA in 1995, some Americans said, well, with this space station with the Russian, we don't want to do it because these are our enemy and we don't want to do it. But we started to work with them slowly and surely and to make them working together. And the station is a real success, especially between the Russian and American. The legacy of the Apollo Soyuz flight in 1975 with Leof and Tom Stafford, continued with the space station, and I hope it will continue after, because there is a new space station around the moon called Gateway that will be launched after the ISS, and the Russians are not in because of the war in Ukraine now, so this is a pity, but I hope after the war they can join again the space station and start to work together. Because if I can summarize on this space station, the Russians learned from the American a lot, and the American learned also from the Russian. And this station is in interdependency, because Russians are depending on the American and vice versa. So all together are really close, in a closed loop, and they cannot separate from each other. And from the astronaut point of view, I can tell you, when I talk to them, I can see a real admiration between the Russian and American and vice versa.
If those people are watching and they're listening to you tonight, or they're watching the mission and they're watching how Sophie and the team get on, and they're just inspired by what's going on, tell me something. The modern generation, tell me how much AI makes a difference, or could make a difference to what we're about to venture into, you know, whether it's the Artemis mission in the US. And I want to mention a couple of things that might come into this. One is communication, just listening to astronauts talking about the issues between trying to communicate from base station on Earth. At the moment, I think I'm right in saying, Michel, to Mars, there's a delay of about 20 minutes communicating. To Jupiter, up to an hour. To Pluto, more than 5 hours of delay. And I just wonder how much AI starts to really change the game.
Oh, this is we are not against AI. AI is working with us. We are teaching AI to be more performant in order to help us in the future, and AI is also helping us. So on the space station, we have a lot of AI devices making life easier for the astronaut. But we cannot leave the AI alone to work, because the AI doesn't have enough knowledge of the system. So we work together. If you look at the Mars situation, and it is true that the communication at the minimum is 20 minutes between the Earth and Mars. So if you have a robot on Mars, if you start to tell the robot stop now, the robot will stop 20 minutes after. Therefore, we need to go very slowly, and this is why we go centimeter by centimeter every day. So it's very slow, and this is why we work all together to be more performant in the future on the Mars mission. We don't plan to go to Jupiter now because it's too far away, but the next step will be the moon in 5 years from now, and 5 or 6 years from now, and the next step will be again after will be Mars. But Mars is a long journey, and today we have a lot of difficulties because the radiation from the sun are extremely dangerous, and a human being cannot stay more than 45 days alive with sun radiation. So we're going to have this Gateway space station around the moon in order to make some other study and to prepare all the devices necessary to go to Mars, and also to study how to protect the human body from the radiation. And when this is done, we can go to Mars together, because the trip is very expensive. As you mentioned at the beginning, the space station is very expensive, but imagine that a flight to the moon is also even more expensive, and the flight to Mars, it's even more and more expensive. So we need the job and the money from all the country, from Earth, in order to go to Mars and to study what was Mars before, and what was the communication, and what was the similarity between Mars and Earth, in order to more protect the Earth.
Well, this is what, taking us back to the start, Michel, Sophie was asked on France 24 fairly recently about the idea of Mars and the moon. This is what she said.
Astronauts will still have to learn the basic skills, and the best way to learn the basic skills is to go to low Earth orbit, so to the ISS first, and then we'll see. Of course, we all dream of the moon and the rest of the missions, but we need to learn the job basically first.
Yeah, get this bit done first. A nod to your book as well, Michel. We've chatted before about the act itself, Coffee in Space. For Sophie and the team, the quality of coffee out there, I imagine, on the ISS is a lot better than it was when you were there in space, even if it's not straightforward, drinking it with no gravity.
Well, you remember I explained to you the last time what was the story behind the coffee in space, and because after 2 days on the Soyuz, we were traveling at 28,000 kilometers an hour, so very fast, and we were tired and exhausted. And a few, let's say half an hour before docking the space station, we were tired and not sure to get to the space station. So it's a very critical moment. And the Russian very peacefully asked me, okay, you are going to dock to the space station very soon, in about 20 minutes. do you want a coffee or tea? Do you want coffee with sugar or no sugar? So the phrase of the Russian asking me if I wanted a coffee with or not sugar was very
Visceral.
special compared to the difficult time we had going to space station. And this contrast made me work writing this book of Coffee in Space.
Well, we did briefly touch upon the fact that obviously your senses are completely skewiff. You know, they've your sense of smell, taste, but you can still get a good sensation of what coffee is like in space.
Yes, and I can tell you, not only I really like coffee on Earth because I am Italian roots, but I love coffee. And I remember on the Mir space station, I came at a time where the supply did not arrive from Earth, so we had the coffee only with sugar. And I don't like coffee with sugar at all. So it was like syrup and coffee, and for me it was difficult. So I was drinking coffee slowly and just a little bit.
Well, Michel, as we speak, let's take a look at the live images of where the crew are right now. They're just above Brazil from the live feed. Let's take a look at the images that they can see in the Atlantic Ocean. Michel, what a pleasure to have you on tonight. Thank you for your time and your insight, an insider's guide to the galaxy. Michel Tognini, renowned French astronaut who's journeyed into space twice, author of Coffee in Space, in the Shoes of an Astronaut. Thank you, Michel.